Keep doing that.
That's okay.
So I wanted to ask you a question about the economic front of this conflict. And Nordstream 2 has consistently been an economic flashpoint during the conflict, and that's come to a head with US and German sanctions being imposed on it this week. And so I wanted to ask you, what economic interests is the US supporting by opposing that particular pipeline, and how significant has economic policy become as another theater of the conflict?
Well, economics, of course, is terribly significant. The problem is that Nord Stream 2 has been completed. It's pending approval, procedural approval from the German judicial authorities. This was always described as kind of a pro forma process. That process has been interrupted. The pipeline has not been canceled. It's not been, as I put in one of my titles, it's not dead in the water, so to speak, okay? It exists, it's there. Now, the Germans themselves depend on Russian fuel for, I think at the latest figure I saw, one third of their oil and gas. That's a lot. What will happen if this thing is really, if they put the kibosh on it, so to speak, okay? If the pipeline is canceled, I don't know how they blow it up or whatever. They can't do that, but let's say it's stopped indefinitely. Well, the US would like to sell liquefied natural gas to the Germans and everybody else, but there are only a couple of liquefied natural gas ships available. And already they're sort of lining up at ports like Hamburg and elsewhere to dislodge what they have. In other words, it's not going to work. And what the Europeans will have to pay is several times what they're paying now for their energy. So what have the Germans done? Well, the Germans have skirted around this issue, and finally, yesterday, I guess, or the day before, said, okay, we're going to discontinue the approval process. Okay, well, okay. It was going along very slowly anyway. They were slow walking it until at least the end of this Ukraine crisis. What will be the end? Well, the end will be very, very telling, because it will mean either A, the Germans wake up and start acting like adults for the first time in 77 years, and not like vassals, not like appendages, not like puppets, okay? Or they tuck tail, they defer to the United States, and then people in Germany begin to question, wow, is this really a good idea? We have not only Der Spiegel, a pretty leftist or liberal magazine, but we have Die Zeit now, a sort of rightish newspaper in Germany, saying, look, you know, it was this broken promise to Gorbachev. It was this broken promise that led to all this business about Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, and how how NATO is encroached ever eastward despite the 1-inch pledge. Spiegel uncovered yet another document proving that Putin is right and that Blinken and Biden are dead wrong. Documentary evidence, okay? And so what does that make the German people believe? Wow, so we reneged on a promise. Helmut Kohl, our chancellor, as well as James Baker, US Secretary of State, we reneged on that promise. Huh. And so all this is because of that. So they're going to ask a lot of questions. In my view, it's a matter of time. I've been saying that the Germans should start acting like adults for like 2 decades now. It may take another decade, but I don't think so. I think this has brought stuff to the to a conclusion here. And I think that within the next year, we'll find out how the Germans react and what that means for the alliance, because the Germans are the linchpin of what's left of NATO. And if they get really disenchanted with US pressure and US sacrificing their own, that is Germans' own interests, economic interests, for their own narrow war against or struggle against Russia, and then that will be very telling. We'll have to see. I guess I have to warn you, as I do when I write about this, don't hold your breath. The Germans are very pliable, and I guess there are reasons for that. And even though I've lived in Germany for 5 years, I still can't figure out the reasons.